any other job out there, you get seduced into it without doing enough due diligence, whether that job is actually better than your current one or it is even worse off. And you realize it only after landing there that it's the same shit in another place. So sorry for the language, but we decided we'll have a candid conversation.
I was a rebel. I don't know why. I was a complete rebel without a cause. कोई कारण नहीं था, but I was a rebel. आज समझ में आता है कि वो रेबेल होने का कोई फायदा नहीं था, because no one actually cares. You have burnt your bridges and that's it. Nothing happens finally at the end of the day. So if you could sit down with your 20-year-old self, what gyan would you give him?
People, often say that if they got a chance to live their life again, they would live the same life again. Most people have this answer, but unfortunately, I am not one of them, because I have made so many mistakes in my life, that if given a chance, I would definitely want to live my life in a different way.
So namaskar and welcome to Thinkly Talks. I am Siddharth, your host today. I am the founder of Briggs, a Bangalore-based engineering firm, which I have been running since the last more than 11 years now. I am a chemical engineer by training and a podcaster now, which is today, by what can only be described as a series of happy accidents. Today's episode is a special one and a big one for two reasons. First, it's the final episode of season 2 of Towards a Better World, which is Ayon's podcast on Thinkly, which has been hosted by some of the most inspiring voices of our time. Second, we have convinced Ayon today to turn the mic on himself for once. For those unfamiliar with Ayon, which is probably no one at this point in time, he has been a B2B space for the last 25 years now. He's a regional leader for Asia Pacific at GE Renewables, which is also known as GE Vernova. Under his leadership, APAC has grown, not just grown, it has doubled in 3 years, tripled in 4 years, and almost quadrupled in 5 years. If business growth was a sport, Ayon would be standing on the podium sipping green tea. But it doesn't stop there. He's also the best-selling author of 4 books, a LinkedIn top voice, and a daily blogger whose posts are read by more people than my emails to HR. Oh, and let's not forget, Ayon is also a fitness enthusiast who doesn't just outspace 20-year-olds, he leaves them Googling quick recovery tips while he's halfway through his next blog. Well, in this episode, Ayon will share his insights of highs and lows and the curveball for his 25 plus years outside the university walls, stories of success, failure, relationships, slumps, and bounce backs. If you have ever wondered what makes a leader tick and do deadlifts as well, you are in here for a treat. Ayon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Siddharth. They were really kind words, and I don't know if I should blush at such kind introductions. But thank you for hosting me, and it's been, and I don't know how I convinced myself that I should be talking this time on my own podcast, which is a little weird. But anyway, thanks for doing this, Siddharth. Very excited about this.
Thanks for agreeing to move the mic towards you this time. आपसे भी काफी सीखने को मिला है मेरे को पर्सनली so we'll jump right in.
Absolutely, very excited. Let's do it.
Okay. अभी जो हम लोग कुछ दिन पहले जो मिले थे यार, like we were discussing, this isn't going to be one of those sir आपका सक्सेस का फॉर्मूला बताइए सेशंस, वो 10 tips to succeed in business and in life, ऐसा वाला नहीं है ये. So instead, let's talk about the real stuff, the hardcore, the rubber meets the road stuff, the mistakes. Now, we all know, most of us know that you have got over 25 years of experience across industries, across 6 industries to be more precise, multiple geographies, and you have been refreshingly very honest about the mistakes that you have made along the way. For all the young professionals who are at the starting line, why don't you share some of those mistakes? मतलब जो गलतियां आपने की थी और जो उन्हें ध्यान रखना चाहिए, missteps that you think they can learn from and hopefully avoid in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, Siddharth, and fantastic pertinent question to start this discussion, because like we said, it is going to be a very non-prescriptive conversation where we will talk of failures more than we'll talk of success. We'll talk of mistakes more than we'll talk of what right things we did. So, and let me start with a little bit of a philosophical statement, which I have realized as I grew older, is that the challenge of youth is that they sign you up for too many games and you can't win because they don't give you enough time to gain mastery from your experience. And the tragedy of experience is that while now you have the mastery and also perhaps the drive that you need to win, they no longer select you to play in the tournament. So as someone who's been on both sides of the spectrum, like and I have realized as I grew older is that I have made so many mistakes in both these stages of my professional life, whether it was in my fast-paced early career or even later during my mid-career plateaus. And like you said, I've been pretty vocal about them because I don't believe in hiding your turkeys. You should tell it to the world, because you learn from mistakes, and other people, you can short circuit other people's learning curves by sharing your mistakes. So, but for the sake of brevity, might have made hundreds of them, but I'll maybe restrict it to 6 broad mistakes that most people make in across professions, across industries, and I have made all of them. And when I say in the professional world, what I mean is people like me who are into some kind of an organizational job. I don't mean people in the founders space like what you or Vivek, people like you are, because for that I have no experience, and maybe we'll do another episode where we'll talk of the mistakes that founders make. But this is for company people like me. So let's get into it. So the number one is, the first mistake people do is they go from one job and they don't go to another job. I'll explain. So when you're working somewhere, you find something wrong with your current job. It could be your location, your job content, your boss, or whatever. And then you find excuses that I don't like this place, I need to get out of here. So any other job out there, you get seduced into it without doing enough due diligence, whether that job is actually better than your current one or it is even worse off. And you realize it only after landing there that it's the same shit in another place. So sorry for the language, but we decided we'll have a candid conversation. So going from instead of going to, first mistake, I have made it a lot of times in the early part of my career, at least. Second is getting sucked into titles. When you are young, like in your late 20s, early mid 30s, you have a newly developing ego, which has a huge hunger and needs. So, and in comes an opportunity dressed in a flashy job title like a vice president or a director or something, and you immediately jump and take it because your ego loves that. And once you get there, you probably don't even do enough homework on that. And then once you get started on that, you see that this job is probably worse off than the one that you were doing before, because this is probably, often I have signed up for jobs which were called these glorious names, but they were just glorified sales managers jobs which were being called a vice president. And then once you get trapped in a business card, which is a heavy business card, it is very difficult for the same ego to come out of it and take a lesser business card. So getting sucked into titles, mistake number 2. Number 3, getting fooled by your year one illusion, because often we take, at least when we are younger, in the first half of our career, we take our first year's performance to heart. We take it very seriously. We either beat ourselves up for a bad performance, or we pump ourselves up because of a good year, which is not probably the right measurement, because the first year results of any job that you take up is basically a spillover of your predecessor's work. So if it's a good year, it's probably your predecessor has done a good job before leaving. If it's a bad year, it's probably your predecessor's bad job. So your real worth of your first year job actually starts showing up from your 13th month onwards. So don't take your first year too seriously. Then the 90-day thing, these days there are so many boot camps and books and tutorials, which from an apprentice to a CEO, everybody has a 90-day plan. So everybody goes in with a very mechanical and polished 90-day plan that see what I've got in the first 90 days. And then on the 91st day, they start floundering. So instead of doing that, and they waste the precious 90 days, because the first 3 months of your time at a new job is the time where you soak in a new organization. You learn what people are like that around you. What is the culture? What is the vibe, the pulse of the new place? Because eventually you are the outsider who has come in. So in the long run, you will have to become one of them. They will not become like you. So use the first 90 days to soak up the culture, learn what works, what doesn't work, etc. And then after 90 days, start spreading your wings. I think that's a more sensible approach. Next is quitting when you are at the top. This is a very sexy catchphrase, people use it quite a lot. But unless you are in competitive sport of some kind where you want to sign off with a good average, top can be sometimes very stupid, because it takes a hell lot of random factors to intersect favorably for you to get to a certain place in an organization. And just to throw it all away because you think that you will keep repeating the success streak, it might not happen. Maybe your next stint, all those factors might not intersect, and you might be in for a bashing. So be very cautious and reflective and calculative when you think of quitting when you are at the top. Then, of course, falling asleep on your career and getting fooled by purple patches, because we all go through these cycles in an organizational employment journey, where we are going through a good patch ourselves, or the company is going through a good patch, and we get complacent during those patches. So we think, this good patch is going to continue forever. It doesn't. And we waste that patch. We don't gather enough rations. We don't upskill ourselves. We don't network enough to create our network outside for the next lean patch, because lean patches will come after a good patch. They will all, it's a law of averages. So use your good patches to prepare yourself for the next lean patch. This is another thing. And finally, the fighting in organizations is a stupid idea. The email ninja, I call it ninja trap. We all, when we are young and green especially, we always want to win every argument, and we like to do it on email or text, etc., which is very disastrous, because the anger subsides after a while, but the email or the text lives on in the inbox of the recipient and the heart of the recipient, more importantly. And I have kind of destroyed a few relationships along the way because of this habit of mine, because of fighting impulsively on email. Never do that, and never burn bridges, because when you are leaving an organization, especially when you are young, you have a lot of angst, a lot of complaints against the way of working there. That's fine. We all have it. But while leaving, leave on a good note. Don't go on bad mouthing. And these days on social media, people bad mouth their ex-organization. Never do that, because a career is a long haul thing. You never know when you're going to come back and work in the same organization. I say this, I have twice in my life, I have come back and worked for the same organization, first in Philips and then in GE. So I know that keeping a good network always helps. So these are kind of some of the top of the line mistakes people make, and I have made all of them. I hope other people learn from them and don't make them. Siddharth.
नहीं, ये आपने जो लास्ट में बोला ना, ईमेल निंजा वाला, तो वो because I before starting Bricks, क्या होता, I have worked for 9 years in corporates and big ones as well. तो ये 6 में से 3 तो मैंने की हैं, मतलब मेरे को पता है. वो लिविंग एट द टॉप वाला जो था ना, वो तो होने के पहले ब्रिक्स चालू हो गया, तो आई डिडंट रियलाइज दैट. बट ये ईमेल निंजा वाला ना, I was talking to somebody who was telling me that I don't know why I was a complete rebel without a cause. कोई कारण नहीं था, but I was a rebel. आज समझ में आता है कि वो रेबेल करने का कोई फायदा नहीं था, because no one actually cares. You have burnt your bridges, and that's it. Nothing happens finally at the end of the day. So that was pretty insightful, Ayan. I'm sure our young friends, whoever has joined, are taking notes. Now, before we move on, I wanted to ask you the big 50-20 question. Now, what is this 50-20 question? I myself have caught myself doing this, not the 50-21, but the 40-21, is that I sometimes sit down and ask myself that at 40, if I would have been 30, what would I tell my younger self? So now that you have hit the big 5-0, so if you could sit down with your 20-year-old self, what gyan would you give him? What gyan would you give him? Not the professional stuff. वो तो हम कवर कर ही रहे हैं, थोड़ा बहुत किया भी हमने. But what advice about life, relationships, or just dealing with simple jugaad of life that life throws at you, would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Wow. So you disclosed my age. So that's good. So,
but you don't look one.
I don't look 50, do I?
Yeah, you don't look one.
Dil se to I'm still 20, but yeah, it's a valid point, Siddharth. So, and I love this old me, young me kind of discussion, because I have, like you, I have done this quite often, and I have written extensively about it. Especially, I did a big, and one of my first books had a chapter. It was called the 40-20 Conversation, which was what I would have given life advice to my 20-year-old self on my 40th birthday. So yeah, I now turned 50. So what would I say? So people, often say that if they got a chance to live their life again, they would live the same life again. Most people have this answer, but unfortunately, I am not one of them, because I have made so many mistakes in my life, that if given a chance, I would definitely want to live my life in a different way. So in my youth, I was one of those super competitive and those brash type A kind of personalities, and I would be super concerned if someone else was getting the better grades, wearing the shinier medal, dating the prettier girl, and so on. And I was forever, enlisting myself in races, some real races, some imaginary, but most of them were unnecessary races, as I now understand. So when I grew older, and the arena shifted, the world around me sped up and I slowed down. And it is only when we slow down and we watch life flow by that we realize the errors that we had been making, or even some of the good things that we have done along the way. So if I meet my 20-year-old self today, I would probably give him some advice that you can continue doing these few things and you should try to do these things differently. So number one, and the most closest to my heart is spend more time with your kids in their early years and spend more time with your parents in their later years. Because life, as you will realize as you grow older, becomes a list of should haves after you run out of time. I always joke that I saw my daughter grow up horizontally, because whenever I would be leaving home in the morning, she'd be asleep. When I'd come back at night, she'd be again asleep. And one day I saw that she was a grown-up lady who's a stranger, who doesn't know me. I don't know her. So that's a regret. And same goes for your parents. You always think that while you are you don't never think that when you are being busy in a busy world, as I call it, your parents are quietly packing up and wrapping their journeys. And one day suddenly you think that I will always make that phone call someday and have that heart-to-heart conversation. But one fine evening, you will realize that you have a familiar phone number in your phone list, but there is nobody else at the other side to pick up the phone. It breaks your heart. So do this. That's number one. Number two is arrogance. Arrogance is a very fleeting outside-in phenomenon, and especially if you've been a successful youngster, you acquire this fleeting outside-in phenomenon and during your good patches. And if you become arrogant during your good patches, and as I had been arrogant in my good patches in my younger years, it often comes back and lashes and it thrashes you during your lean patches. So try not to be arrogant when life is good to you. Try embracing humility, the real humility, not the social media fake humility. That should be your real scorecard, and which will be your anchor as you grow older. Failing and failure are not the same. You should fail often. Just don't fail at the same thing twice. Make a lot of friends. And I think I have done a good job of this. Age no bar, race no bar, gender no bar. Have no transactional agenda to get anything out of friends. A life without friends is very lonely. It is very tough. Educate yourself about money matters at an early age. And I feel terribly guilty about this, Siddharth, because even today, I don't understand money well. So that's something I missed out in this lifetime. Your health will be your superpower after you're 40. And I tried to do a good job of it. Protect it, nurture it. And every day you should nurture it. Exercise regularly, eat in moderation. Don't smoke, very importantly. Human beings are the same beneath colors of their skins and passports. So never approach another human being with a preconceived notion or a judgment. They are all the same. They have the same insecurities, the same dreams, same aspirations, like you do, like I do. And irrespective of their racial roots, their color, their religion, their sexual orientation, their gender, whatever. I mean, they are all the same. So learn to deal with everyone in a very homogeneous way. And then this is a little deep one. As you peel through life, Siddharth, you will gradually discover who you are beneath each layer. Each discovery, you will lose a bit of yourself. And some nights, you will stare into those blank spaces. And some nights, those blank spaces will stare back at you. You have your stories. The blank spaces have their stories. So think about it. The next one is very important. Hope, trust, and faith are very different things. And we often confuse all these three to be the same when we are young. Trust needs to succeed an objective event. That is, to trust something, you need to see a proof of that event happening. Faith, on the other hand, needs to precede an event. So if you have to display faith, you have to have faith before the event happens. And hope is none of the two. Hope is basically just a pessimist which is dressed as an optimist. This treadmill of middle years, which you hit after 35 maybe, make sure you get off it occasionally. Take a deep breath and you examine, what's going on around yourself as the decades slip by. Because I always joke that inside every older person is a younger person, who is wondering where the hell did all that music go. So look around, step off the treadmill. And lastly, in the end, you just can't beat life, because you will realize when you grow older that life was not a contest after all. I think these are some of the things I'll tell my younger self, Siddharth.
No, you're absolutely right. I keep thinking to myself, जाना कहाँ है पता नहीं है, करना क्या चाहते हैं पता नहीं है. कभी कभी तो लगता है जीवन में कोई अभिलाषा है, मतलब एम्बिशन है भी कि नहीं है. So I myself struggle with myself a lot of times. Then you realize that you have to probably define the word ambition in your own particular way. क्या होता है ना कि we get so influenced, और आजकल के जमाने में सोशल मीडिया से इतना ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस हो जाते हैं कि यार इसने ये बोला था तो हाँ यार ये सही होगा, इसने वो बोला था तो वो सही होगा. We keep redefining and defining and we get tired. Finally, the end of the day, those blank spaces which you're mentioning start staring at us. We are actually losing ourselves one day at a time. So we will, since we're talking about self-reflection and life lessons, I want to take the conversation towards our corporate setup. And running this organization for the last 13 years, ये जो एक ना काफी चर्चा में है आजकल, और हर चाय की टपरी में और कॉर्पोरेट कैंटीन में डिस्कस होता है, द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ फॉर्मल एजुकेशन, स्पेशली हायर एजुकेशन. मेरा एक ओपिनियन है, बट दैट इज माय ओपिनियन. I remember reading in one of your books, and you talked about that one of your high school toppers who didn't quite ace it in real life. मैंने भी देखा है, when you start reading this kind of stuff, you start correlating कि मेरे जीवन में क्या हुआ होगा. So tell me, आपकी नजर से, from your viewpoint, is formal education really worth the hype, or it is just an expensive way to collect college degrees and disappointments? I'm being a little upfront, but that's what I think. What is your take?
I like the phrase college degrees and disappointments. No, so great sensitive question, and like we said, we are going to ruffle many feathers in this discussion. So let's do it. So the first, I'll start with two disclaimers. The first disclaimer is I never say that higher education is not good. Education is still important, and it still is a passport to a good life. At least till today, it's a passport to a good life in today's world. Maybe tomorrow it will be something else, but today at least it's still important. What I meant was the necessity, that obsession to be at the top of the class at all times, that is counterproductive, because that can eat away your life. And the second disclaimer is, this article which you said, which I had put in my book, was I had done a survey of various people across different batches in one generation, and I had slotted them into type A's, type B's, and type C's based on their academic performance in high school. And what I observed was that the type A's, who were the top of the class people, didn't fare so well in real life as compared to the type B's, who were like the middle rung people, but who also were good at other things. So that was a comparison I had made in that chapter. So let me get into it and, kind of lay out. And this is a very generic overview. So please, people should not take it personally. I am not meaning any particular person when I say this. So why don't type A's do so well? Because number one is life is messy. So Eric Barker, I don't know if you read Eric Barker. Eric Barker had once said a very nice thing. He said, school has rules, but life doesn't have rules. Right? So the education system is very demanding. You do this, you get that. You do more of this, you get more of that. So this works in academics, but it doesn't work in a non-linear real life situation, which can be very unpredictable, which can be unfair, which can be messy. So life is messy. Real life doesn't have rules. So, and type A's generally fare badly because of that. Number two, in formal education, at least in the contemporary education system, we have a lot of subjects which are taught to us, and which we realize that is completely irrelevant for 99% of us when we hit real life. For example, you are a science student and an engineer. Do you really need trigonometry or calculus in real life? I don't think so. I never needed it. I don't know why I had to break my head learning those nonsense. And academics, rarely equip us with the skills that we will really need outside university walls. For example, how to collaborate, how to build consensus, how to negotiate your way, how to deal with money, how to make profits. These things are never taught inside the university walls, right? So I think you don't need these irrelevant subjects. And I had an example of a guy in my high school class who was a genius in trigonometry. Unfortunately, in real life, when he came out and joined real life, he fared pretty badly because he was not prepared. All his thing was about trigonometry and science and maths. So that's there. Number 3 is life is all about people, right? You will agree, Siddharth, you are running your own business. So while these type A's, when we were growing up, these type A's would stay holed up inside their homes all day because they had a very demanding uh, life, because they had to top the class all the time. During that time, type B's, at least I consider myself as a type B, and we were out there, we were sampling life in an eclectic manner, going on dates, getting into fights, quoting from Rumi, reading Kafka, and doing everything else. So we were getting in and out of relationships. So type A's, they become, as they grew up, many of them I saw that they became socially awkward, and because they were largely untouched by life's upheavals during their impressionable years, which are very important for forging our personality types. So I think that's number 3. It's all about people. Number 4 is bouncing back, because type A's, they have a self-confidence that is fueled by academic success alone, and such a self-confidence can be very fragile. I can give you a very funny example. When I was in class 11, and I'm very ashamed of this, I accidentally had topped my class. And when I topped my class, I suddenly saw that all the type A's around me, they started looking at me with suspicion, and they immediately shunned me and dropped me out of their friend lists. So that's what happens to type A's. They are so insecure about their territory that they end up getting hurt and bloodied when real life hits them with curveballs. And type B's are much more bindas. They are level-headed enough not to let success get into their heads, nor to get grounded whenever they know that no failure is permanent. It's just a cycle, it'll go away. And so most type B's, they generally have a very personalized toolkit that they reach out for whenever they encounter failure, and which helps them to bounce back, and it helps them to keep moving forward in life. Then you must have heard that saying, what matters is not the size of the dog in the fight, but it matters is the size of the fight in the dog. So type A's, they have a very academic approach towards conflict. They make lists, they do research, and they go in to not lose a fight. They don't go in to win a fight. They generally do not handle criticism very well. They view detractors, professional detractors, as personal, adversaries. And they also have limitations in their people skills department. So when it comes to building consensus through either collaboration or by subtle maneuvering in company politics, etc., and which is a fact of life, these type A's, so these type A's, generally they stumble. They have, type B's on the other hand, they have they strike a very fine balance between practice and impulse. They have wider networks, they have a big goodwill account, they have higher goodwill accounts, and they have a very instinctive approach, if you have noticed, towards conflicts. They know which battles I should pick, which battles I should pick to win, and which to let go. So that's there. And then, of course, there is, I call it clubs and nostalgia, which is basically, you will see, and I don't know if it was the same with your type A's also in your school. They never quite leave high school. They are trapped in a very dated and old self-image, and they're forever trying to sign up for these, stupid WhatsApp groups, and they sign up for these reunion events where they have a few chamchas who will come to these events and remind them what great students they used to be. And they forget, these idiots, that student life has ended 30 years back, and they are still living in the past. And so type B's, on the other hand, they have no patience for the past. They love new experience, they love new challenges, they love new victories, even new defeats, to keep going. And the last thing which I think I had written there was the type A's, and this is a little judgmental, but I have seen that many of these type A's generally tend to be a little selfish and insecure by nature. I mean, it comes with the territory, because when you are programmed at such an early age to stay ahead in races that school throws you into, selfishness and insecurity kind of become your survival skills, right? So they serve you well till the outcome is some kind of a mark sheet. But real life, as we know, is not a cause and effect program, right? It's not that you do this and you get that mark. So real life is tough and it is non-linear. So when these latent defects don't go away in type A's, rather they compound over time. And these type A's, they build islands for themselves as they grow older, and they are too stingy to help others, many of them, and they are too proud also to ask for help when the need arises. So they lead very lonely lives as they grow older. So these were some examples I had given. I know it's a very generic commentary. I know also I will add as an disclaimer that I know many type A's who have done extremely well in their lives, and I know of many type B's who have turned out into big failures. But this was more of a generic observation, Siddharth.
नहीं आप सही बोल रहे हो, बहुत जनरली ही बात कर रहे हैं आप. मतलब देयर विल बी आउटलायर्स इन बोथ द केसेस, टाइप ए एंड टाइप बी. हमारे स्कूल में भी इट इज एग्जैक्टली द सेम. आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट ह्यूमंस आर, राइट? मतलब सेम इनसिक्योरिटीज. हम जो दो पहले ही क्वेश्चन में बोले, द सेम इनसिक्योरिटीज, सेम पैटर्न ऑफ बिहेवियर. सो वी ऑल आर द सेम, इट्स जस्ट दैट आवर ड्रेसेस आर डिफरेंट. इनफैक्ट मेरे स्कूल में भी आई वाज, मतलब टाइप ए टाइप बी का तो पता नहीं was, लेकिन मैं टाइप सी डी बी अगर कोई क्लासिफिकेशन है तो मैं उसमें था. गलती से कभी नहीं टॉप किया मैंने, कभी नहीं, गलती भी नहीं हुई है. पॉइंट ये था कि हमारे जितने भी टाइप ए थे, इधर एग्जैक्टली सेम पैटर्न. आई नो सम टाइप बीज हु वर माय एक्चुअल फ्रेंड्स. वन इज लीडिंग अ लार्ज होटल चेन, वन इज द सीईओ ऑफ अ फार्मास्यूटिकल कंपनी. ग्रेट गाइज. मतलब उनका ना जुगाड़ मेंटालिटी जो बोलते हैं ना, वो जुगाड़ मेंटालिटी बहुत तेज चलता है. मतलब कहीं पे भी सर्वाइव कर लेंगे. मतलब स्कूल से निकाल दिया तो क्रिकेट खेलने चले गए. मतलब इट वाज दोस काइंड ऑफ, निकाल दिया तो निकाल दिया, अभी क्या करें. सो दोस काइंड ऑफ पीपल आई हैव सीन. मतलब एंड वंस अपॉन अ टाइम समबडी टोल्ड मी कि सिद्धार्थ तुम जैसे हो ना, तुमको लोग भी वैसे ही मिलेंगे. तो ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि मेरे को लोग भी वैसे ही मिले हों. तो आई हैव प्रॉब्ली अट्रैक्टेड दोस काइंड ऑफ पीपल टू मी. So
that's why you did so well for yourself. I mean, that's a certificate for yourself.
कोशिश जारी है बस. But a very very interesting perspective. वो जो type A type B वाला था ना, it helps you slot and try to organize your thoughts around.
और मैंने वो चैप्टर को खत्म किया था इस लाइन के साथ में कि out of the entire sample of 25 people whom I had surveyed, the person who came out the best in life out of those 25 was actually a type C. जो कि क्लास 7th में जिसने जो ड्रॉप आउट कर गया था.
Right.
So okay.
So I will ये proper वाली बात से बहुत एक, that reminds me of something in the real world that many of the leaders, the top leaders that we have, I've seen multiple of them. अभी थोड़ा सा experience भी हो गया, and I meet a lot of them as customers and all. And they struggle with one thing, which is managing P&Ls. Now, since we have warmed up, थोड़ा सा serious बात भी कर लेते हैं, which is related to corporates. So let's get to the heart of it. I want to understand and know why do you think so many chosen leaders in big organizations? I'm not talking about the 25-30 करोड़ वाले में, वो लोग तो दिन पे खाना आ जाए टेबल पे वही बहुत है, सैलरी दे दे वही बहुत है. But the big ones, the large organizations, अभी recently एक chip manufacturer का हमने पढ़ा, they falter when it comes to delivering on PL and responsibilities. Is it बस management degree का over confidence है, या फिर there is something more deeper at play which is there? What is your take on this P&L management?
PNL is a very favorite subject of mine because ये PNL को लेके इतना हवा मचा रहता है चारों तरफ कि जैसे कि कहीं पे भी you apply करो ना, and you are a good sales guy but you are not ready for a PNL responsibility. You are a good supply chain guy but you can't handle a PNL. So मुझे कभी-कभी लगता है कि I mean what exactly is a PNL responsibility, and who are these people? कौन है ये लोग जो कि यूनिवर्सिटी गेट्स में से PNL expert hat पहन के निकलते हैं? Because if you look at Jack Welch, he started as a junior chemical engineer in a factory, and like many successful professionals out there who all start at the bottom of the pyramid and they learn and make mistakes and grow up and go to the top. So mere 25 saal mein, my 25 years of leading hugely profitable businesses across 6 major industries and in a dozen countries, my humble understanding of a good P&L leader is that, and I have jotted down 7 points and I will tell them one by one. Number one, he or she should have a growth mindset which is above their competition. Number two, he or she should have the energy and ambition to deliver that growth mindset despite market conditions, because market conditions will keep going up and down, but usko continue karna padega. Number three should be, this person should have a credibility and a track record to back द फर्स्ट 2 पॉइंट्स, वो भी होना बहुत जरूरी है. ऐसे ही नहीं कि मैं आके बोल दिया कि मैं कर दूंगा. यू हैव टू हैव अ क्रेडिबिलिटी एंड अ ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड. Number four, you should have the ability to get buy-ins from diverse internal and external audiences and stakeholders, because a PNL leader's job is to do a lot of salesmanship internally and externally. So that's there. And basically to drive a series of small pictures and so as to get to the big picture. Number 5, you should have the adaptability to hit the ground running. वो सोचते रहते हैं ना MBA टाइप्स लोग, जो कि ये करेंगे, चार्ट बनाएंगे, पावर पॉइंट बनाएंगे, वैसे नहीं चलता है. You have to hit the ground running. You have to have the humility to course correct yourself when you make mistakes, and you have to have the agility to learn, unlearn, and relearn when dealing with unknown unknowns. और आज के दुनिया में बहुत होने वाला है. There are going to be unknown unknowns, and you have to reinvent yourself again and again. Then the maturity to retain small shop thinking, जुगाड़ जो आपने बताया अभी, small shop thinking, even when you're leading a very large outfit, that keeps you lean, because that gives you that horse sense to earn enough to sustain, invest, inspire, and grow more than the market. And finally, an unflinching personal integrity and value system that doesn't wobble whenever storms hit you. And आज की दुनिया में storms are going to hit you every second day. So these are the 7 basic requirements. But if I look at and put it in a basic context, Siddharth, I will probably use the Galla analogy. Galla, and
absolutely,
you So Galla is basically, for my non-Hindi speaking readers, listeners, Galla is basically cash box in Hindi, and which is the first yardstick that small business owners use to assess the health of their enterprise. So मैंने बहुत small business owners के साथ काम किया है. I've learned from them quite a lot, and they ask some very rudimentary questions, to themselves every day. So is it that we are not selling enough, or are we not charging enough? Mind the questions. Did yesterday's higher Galla borrow from today's Galla? क्या मैंने आज के सेल को प्रीपोन करके कल कर दिया था? Is it that we are selling to the wrong customers, or are we selling the wrong products? Is it that we are not manufacturing efficiently enough, or we are not sourcing efficiently? Are our credit lines high? Are our shipping cycles bad? Are we missing execution deadlines? Are we not collecting efficiently enough, collecting money? Is our salesperson not knowledgeable or motivated, or both maybe? Is it a quality gap? Is it a skill gap, or a reputational issue? Are we competing with the wrong people, or is our competition doing something right that we are missing? How is the offtake of our top 10 customers in the past week, month, quarter? Is someone dipping into the Galla for superfluous expenses? The problem is, as we grow bigger in size, we stop asking ourselves these basic questions. We equate strategy with results. बड़े-बड़े PowerPoint मतलब results. We think efforts means efficiency. We think status quo है तो consistency है. It's not that. It's not a strategy contest. A PNL leadership is not a strategy contest. It is not an effort contest, nor a status quo contest. It is simply basics, and it is a results contest. अगर results आएंगे, then you are a good PNL leader. नहीं तो आज के डेट में आप देखो चारों तरफ, आज के डेट में Starbucks का CEO within less than a year he has been fired. You look at Boeing CEO, he has to step down. All big CEOs, and these are people who are paid $25-30 million a year. They are not able to complete one successful year. So we need to be more prudent now about what we call PNL and whom we hand over the reins of a PNL to. Siddharth.
नहीं, absolutely. ये ना धंधा ना देसी तरीके से ही होता है, कितने भी बड़े हो जाए. And my mentor used to say the same thing when I started. He used to tell me कि तुम्हारा कोई अगर मारवाड़ी डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर है, गुजराती डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर है ना, उनके साथ जाके बैठो, 4 दिन बैठो, तुमको सीख समझ में आ जाएगा सेल्स क्या होता है और धंधा क्या होता है. ये एब्सोल्युटली राइट. वो पावर पॉइंट पे ना धंधा खड़ा नहीं होता है. आज गल्ले में कितना पैसा आया और कल कितना जाएगा, यही दिस इज व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इट इज. आई एब्सोल्युटली एग्री विद यू. द फैंटास्टिक पॉइंट है. थैंक यू फॉर शेयरिंग दैट. एक और मेरा टॉपिक है, एक तो पीएनएल वाला टॉपिक था जो मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रहा था, क्योंकि मेरे को ना ये काफी फ्लफ लगता है. बेसिकली धंधा चलाना है. एक और मेरा फेवरेट टॉपिक है, पर्सनल फेवरेट. हर्ड यू दैट यू रेफर योरसेल्फ एज एन एक्सीडेंटल सेल्समैन. एंड ऑनेस्टली मुझे भी थोड़ा पर्सनल करेक्शन है, बिकॉज आई ऑल्सो कॉल माई सेल्फ 1-2, बिकॉज माई कमिंग टू सेल्स वॉज कंप्लीट एक्सीडेंट. क्योंकि मेरे को लगता था कि मैं ये नहीं कर पाऊंगा तो सेल्स कर लेता हूँ, देख लेते हैं, मतलब वैसा वाला. ऐसा नहीं था कि सोचा था कि मैं सेल्समैन ही बनूंगा. सो टेल मी, व्हाई डू यू कॉल योरसेल्फ एन एक्सीडेंटल सेल्समैन? अब क्या एडवाइस देना चाहेंगे उन सब लोगों को जो बाई चांस सेल्स में आ गए हैं, एंड हाउ डू दे नॉट जस्ट विंग इट बट एक्चुअली ओन इट?
Okay, yeah, I always call myself an accidental salesperson, Siddharth. You're right, and I have written extensively about it. Because मैं जब शुरू में 26-27 साल पहले जब मैं सेल्स में आया, I mistook my personality type to be a salesperson. I thought I was a people person. I love people, so I thought I'll make a good salesperson. But as soon as I came into it, within a year, मुझे समझ में आ गया कि I am not one of those loud, boisterous, extroverted sales personalities. I was more of an ambivert. But I was already married and I had a kid on the way, so responsibilities had me cornered, so I could not leave the job, and so I had to continue in sales. So that 1 year became 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, and now I have clocked like 26, 27 years
Still counting.
in this profession where I came in accidentally and I never quite made out of it. So I think that's what brought me here. But I've had my fair share of successes also in this profession, and would I leave this profession? Never. I love this profession. So what could be my advice to fellow accidental salespeople like myself? I can share what works for me. Number one, focus on the person. Human nature, it intrigues me. It fascinates me. I am very, very keen to understand the human being behind a business card. So, unlike conventional salespeople who are always advised to keep an eye on the price, I never really kept an eye on the price, honest confession. I always focused on the human being and the relationship. The prices followed in a very non-linear way. Sometimes they didn't follow, but the relationships, they stayed. And once the relationships stay and they solidify over a period of time, prices and new prices follow from other doors, which you'd never even expect. Number one, so focus on the person. Number two, this is a childhood habit which has served well for me, which is the habit of debating from both sides of the same subject. So I can do it every day. Like I can pick up any strong opinion of mine and I can debate against it also. So if you can, cultivate this habit in you, you will see this is a superpower, because this will kind of help you detach yourself from your own self, your opinions, your judgments, etc., and view the situation from a wide angle third person's point of view. And that helps a lot when you are an accidental salesperson. Number three, network without an agenda. Because I mentioned about making friends. I network relentlessly and I never have an agenda. And my network somehow or the other comes to my aid in a very non-linear way. Somewhere along the way, that network comes and helps me out somewhere. So I never start out with an agenda, and that always helps. Next is be original. Even a flawed original has got a better recall value than a clone. These days I look at salespeople. Most of them are like clones of each other. They dress in a similar way, they talk in a similar way, make similar presentations, and they all basically. You don't want to become a Dolly the sheep, right? You want to be an original Siddharth Bose. So I think you should be an original, and people will remember you more, love you more, because human beings, they buy from human beings. They don't buy from Dolly the sheep. So that's there. Then read, and then read some more and assimilate as much as you can. And don't worry, even if you can't assimilate or remember all of it, somehow all the reading that you do along the years, it kind of settles down somewhere in your subconscious. And it comes to your aid at very unexpected quarters. I have seen, I am a small town guy with no higher education beyond my engineering, but I have competed with some of the brightest Ivy League grads in the world. And I have seen this reading habit has come to my aid at very unexpected quarters. So make sure you make a habit of reading, really reading regularly. Play to your strengths. Accidental people, salespeople like us, I know myself, I'm very self-aware person. I know that I don't have that default personality where I'll walk inside a room and people will buy from me. I'm not that sales guy. But I have my some subtle strengths. I kind of write okayish. I am a daily blogger. I go to public speaking places. I speak in public. So all this has given me a kind of a passive audience to build my brand. And this grows as you grow older. And this passive, will this audience always buy from me? No, they will not. But will they pass on a favorable word about me if they are asked about me? Tomorrow, if somebody asks Siddharth that, hey, Siddharth, do you know Ayon? How is the guy? You will probably say that he's okay. He's okay. I mean, he's a nice guy, or at least he's a good friend of mine. You'll say that. So that helps. Be a world-class listener. When you are an accidental salesperson, you are not those boisterous, ज़्यादा बात करने वाला salesman. So that gives you time to listen to the other person with all your senses. And listening can be the most seductive thing you can do in a relationship. So, if you are a good listener, people will fall in love with you. So be a world-class listener. Learn the art of questioning. 25 years back when I started off, the person who had all the right answers was the best salesperson. Today, thanks to internet and and of course AI now, everybody has all the answers. So the answers are no longer going to fetch you, get you a foot on the door. It's basically the person who knows how to ask the right question, how to frame the right questions, and help your customer to frame the right questions. That person will be the superstar in today's sales world. Then this is a personal one. Learn to walk away. I have walked away from deals, from bosses, from jobs, wherever a tiny voice inside my heart pricked me and said, I don't want to do this. Because I always feel very strongly that the good and accidental salespeople like us should stand for something, because people who fall for everything, they stand for nothing. So I think we should stand for something. And finally, you should have a bounce back mechanism, because all romanticism aside, this is a bloody tough profession. It has a very high rate of rejection, which can be as high as 10:1 or 40:1, depending on
every day. You're getting rejected every day.
Every day by every Tom, Dick, and Harry will reject you, and you need to come back with a Teflon coating on yourself, right? So every night you should have an unwind button, and every morning you should have a reset button. So you could have different buttons. My buttons are writing at night. So whenever I take up my pen and start write on my blog, I know that the day is over for me. So all that baggage is gone. And the next morning when I hit the gym for my workout, I know that Ayon, rise and shine. A new day has begun. So you have to have a bounce back mechanism. So these are some of the things which people like us, like accidental salespeople, can keep in mind, and this can keep you going through a tough profession. Siddharth.
I agree. But in सबका जो एक underlying factor जो आपने बोला ना, courage to walk away, courage to ask questions, courage to listening. You said listening is one of the not only seductive but is also one of the most courageous things to do. चुपचाप बैठे रह के सुनना है, not to respond but to understand, जैसे हम लोग बोलते हैं. अब इन सब के पीछे ना जो एड्रेनलिन है ना, मेरे को वो सबसे ज्यादा पसंद आता है. गेटिंग रिजेक्टेड एवरी डे, अगेन गेटिंग अप, बाउंसिंग बैक. लेकिन जब एक ऑर्डर आता है ना, बस सारा दुख दर्द दूर हो जाता है. I have been doing it for the last 17-18 years now. वो सारा everything starts making sense suddenly. एक छोटा ऑर्डर भी आ जाता है ना, तो काम हो जाता है अपना. तो I really like that. Thank you so much. I probably I knew all this, but I wanted to hear this again from you. So now, when we're talking about chances, that things happen by chance, now let's talk about something that I personally relate to. Has been one of the most difficult period of my life, but thankfully it was a very short time. If not for that, I wouldn't have started Bricks, which is losing a job unexpectedly. I was told on the 26th of, I remember the date, I was told on 26th of June to leave the organization on 29th of June. And the organization where I was second employee, we literally built the organization in India. So these days we hear a lot about indiscriminate firings. One day you are in a meeting and the next day you're packing your things. It's kind of a blow that can shake anybody's self-identity, anybody's core. I have been there too. And so I know how tough it can be. Despite being a top performer, you have also openly shared as to how you were unfairly fired once, but you bounced back within 3 weeks to reinvent yourself. So please हम लोग थोड़ा सा ज्ञान दीजिए कि उस वक्त जब ये हुआ था आपके साथ, when you were fired, कैसे संभाला आपने खुद को, क्या किया आपने? What were the lessons that people who are listening to us can take away, who are going through similar phases, similar tough phases, and it can last from 3 days to 3 weeks to 3 years as well. So what should be the, क्या किया जाए उस समय, कैसे अपने आप को ड्राइव करते रहे हैं?
True. So I think, yes, I have been pretty vocal, like you said, Siddharth, because I have no shame in admitting that I was once fired at the top of my game, when I was at the top of my game, because I had made some racist and incompetent people, I choose the words very carefully, nervous by being better than them. So I don't want to show them the finger, but that's what I do to them now. So in my case, it was by design. But in today's disruptive world, it is more by default. So, and I found, like you said, I found myself 3 jobs in 3 weeks. But I was never the same person after that. Because truth be told, Siddharth, you are never back as the same person in the workforce as who walked out of that elevator with a pink slip in your hand, especially if you had been a great performer till then. Because getting fired, it hardens you, it changes you in ways that you never imagined before. But having said that, I would also say that there are certain lessons you learn only when you had this experience. Because, like we hit the gym every day, right? There are some muscles which develop only under hardships. So likewise, some unwritten lines, they get added into your resume only after you get fired. These lessons make you a sharper professional and empathetic leader, but most of all, they make you a better human being. So I have had some learnings from this journey, from that experience, and I can share it without any shame with people. And I hope my younger friends can learn something out of it. So number one, apprehension of getting fired is always worse than the actual incident. Because for me, the few weeks leading to that, where the actual torture was, that will it happen, will it not happen? Once it happened, I went back home, changed into my gym clothes, clocked my best 10K timing that evening, went home, poured myself a large whiskey, sat with my favorite Woody Allen movie, and it was not as bad as it seemed before that. So that's there. Apprehension is always worse than the real thing. It's often the politics, stupid as I call myself, it's the politics. Because in my case, they gave me all that bull that, it's a cost cutting, the restructuring, blah, blah, blah. And this person who made the decision, he had a bunch of cronies, a bunch of incompetent cronies like himself. And he actually retained all their jobs. And he actually got some of them transferred to high cost countries with salaries which were 3 times more than mine. And they were never fired. So it was the politics. And I was unnecessarily beating myself up for that. Third is, life is unfair. When we are going through a good patch in life, or life is good, we sometimes forget and we fall asleep on life. And we should wake up and smell the coffee, because we think life is all about roses and music and nice people and great leaders we read about in HBR issues. Often the real world turns out to be a rude awakening, because you see many jerks around you in the real world. These are the vultures and sharks whom you have to look out for always, because the moment they see that you are weak or you are not conscious and alert enough, they will pounce on you. So life is unfair, be alert. Next is, they cannot take away your yesterdays or your tomorrows. Getting fired is an event. It's a singular event. It has got nothing to do. It's not a report card about your capabilities. So, if you have been a superstar yesterday, you can be a bigger superstar tomorrow. And, case in point, Shah Rukh Khan, right? Our favorite. So, जब zero हुआ, उसको लोगों ने write off कर दिया. He comes back, right? So people can come back. So
what a bloody comeback.
So comeback होता है तो वैसा होता है, ठीक है ना? So fired हुआ तो हुआ, आओ तो ऐसे आओ कि जला के रख दो सब. So you can always come back. Sometimes it might not be about you at all. Sometimes when we work for large organizations, there could be a strategic shift in the priorities of the company. The business line might not be profitable. The geography might not make sense for their overall objectives. And you could be a victim of that strategy. So don't take it so personally. Next is, look into the mirror sometimes. If you have been a fast tracker, especially in your younger days, like I used to be, you can get arrogant. And I was very arrogant as a youngster. And I was a bad listener. I was very aggressive. If it was not agreeing to my way of thinking, I would just dismiss it. And it was like I was a my way or a highway kind of a person. And getting fired has made me humble. It's not that I have become docile or submissive, but I listen more than I speak these days. And I never, dismiss anybody else's opinion, no matter how junior he or she may be. I listen to everyone. I think that's one of the things you need to do. Sometimes the next point is a little counterintuitive, because it might sound pompous, but sometimes it might be that you are too good. Because you've heard this Steve Jobs' analogy, right? That if you are an A player, a B player will never hire you or keep you under him or her, because you will make a B player nervous. So a B player will always hire a C player, and a C player will hire a D player. So eventually the organization becomes a congregation of Z players. And that's what is called as a bozo explosion. So if you have accidentally landed up under a B player and you are an A player yourself, you should be prepared that you probably are in for trouble, and take it in your stride. This is a personal one. Getting fired it's like a boot camp, where you find yourself back. Because often, when we are going through a long career, we can sometimes lose ourselves. We can get dusty and rusty as we go along, and we forget that proud youngster that we used to be at the starting line. Those 3 weeks, they were my boot camp. I rediscovered elements in myself which I had forgotten, and I had left behind. That combat, that sense of fight, that creativity, whichever I had. And you get all of that back when you are in that boot camp. So it's like getting a new page one in the middle of your story. And lastly, you are not your job alone. You are a husband, you are a wife, you are a brother, you are a sister, you are a son, you are a daughter, you are an athlete, you are a musician, you're an artist. There's so many things outside that elevator from which you had walked out with that pink slip. And you let all that slip into the background because you box your entire identity to just a bloody job. I mean, that's so stupid. Wear all your hats. And this is how I tried to reinvent myself after the event. Today, I have no shame in saying I wear all my hats and I don't care. My job, if people ask me, it's a part of my personality. That's it. It's not the whole of who I am. I have several hats and all of them are me. So, be proud of all your hats. So I think these are some of the lessons which I have learned, and I would probably give it to my friends. Siddharth.
नहीं बिल्कुल बस ये ना लास्ट वाला जो आपका पॉइंट था is to be who are we outside a job. I will come back to that. Please hold on to that thought. But before that, now I just wanted to say that what you just said, and this has become very common these days. I find myself many a times on the other side of the table doing that. But this has become very common. This is a very common thing. It is not about the capability or your talent per se. It can be a factor of many things. Yes, of course, you have to perform, you have to do your work and all that stuff. If those things are right, it is mostly not about your capability and talent. I'm sure this will give a lot of solace to and hope to a lot of people, which you just said, and inspire them to get back, bounce back with confidence and start afresh. Now, as we wrap up, I have just got one more so-called academic question जो मेरे को पूछना था और मैं आपसे पूछना चाह रहा था. I couldn't ask you when I met you last time. As someone who, like you, who has been a B2B lifer, negotiating for multi-million dollar deals or deals in general across industries, across geographies, आपके पास श्योरली काफी सारे ना रियल वर्ल्ड नेगोशिएशन ज्ञान होगा. तो कुछ हमको भी वो ज्ञान थोड़ा दीजिए बॉस, ताकि हम लोग भी, we are also in the middle of few negotiations. Many people who are listening to us will be in any kind of negotiation. What are the top negotiations tips that you have picked up over the years that probably a management school will never teach you?
Great. Negotiations is a subject in itself, Siddharth. So I think we need a separate podcast for that, episode for that. We are almost up on time. But anyway, I'll yes, I have participated in negotiations across industries, and each of these industries were very different from each other. FMCG, insurance, heavy duty gas turbines, renewables, blah blah blah. So also, as an ordinary professional who started without advantages in life, I also had to negotiate my way through my work and life every day.
Yeah,
I won
exactly.
some, I lost others. So if I'm asked to rate, I would rate myself an average negotiator at best. But yes, I have seen some real stalwarts over the years, from some of my Indian dealers during my FMCG days, excuse me, to some of the toughest Asian EPC contractors in the power sector, from some of the superstar salespeople I worked with or against, who are my competitors, to some of the most successful insurance salespeople whom I led during my stint in insurance. So each negotiation was very different. So were the stakes and the ticket sizes. So it's very difficult to put a logical, appealing, step-by-step approach to negotiation, because negotiations rarely follow a pattern. You often need to jump from strategy A to strategy K without warning. So so there are some best practices, I can say, which they don't teach you in business schools, and these are from experience. And you internalize these. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. You fail, you lose an order, you come back and you learn again. That's how it builds up.
आपका ही वाला एक्सपीरियंस नहीं है बस, वरना तो चैट जीपीटी में आपका क्या है वो बताइए.
I'll give you some of mine. Do your homework in a very detailed manner because there is always a surround story about the deal. So there are people, there are events, there are circumstances, there is money, there is financing. Do the surround story research very well, and nowadays you have AI to help you do that. So do your research very well. 1 hour of homework saves you 10 hours of real work. Number one. Number two, as I said, learn to listen very deeply. Like Daniel Pink said, right? You practice the 7-second pause. So when the other party speaks, after that, don't wait to be, don't jump into reply. Give 7 seconds, let the answer soak into you. And when you give these pauses, you will observe a lot of unspoken clues in the room. You can read the room much better when you talk less and listen more. Then this is another, old school technique which was taught to us in our formative years, was the encyclopedia style of selling, which is basically, keep asking a series of pointed questions to the client, and they keep on saying yes, 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 and in the end you get them to say the big yes. But with due respect to the old school, I find this very insulting to the intelligence of the customer. They are not idiots who will go on saying yes. So there'll always be one or two big no's, the elephants in the room. Get the no's out first. When you get the big elephants out first, life becomes easy in a negotiation meeting. Next is, never try to convince your other party, because people never change their old decisions. What they do is they make new decisions based on new facts. So instead of trying to contest their decision, try to give them new facts and nudge them towards new decisions. There's always a team on the other side. You may notice it or not notice it, but there is always a team. So if you are the lead negotiator, you may not observe or understand the entire team. So have someone sit beside you and take notes and give it back to you at the end of the day when you're in the hotel. So, there'll be 3 different personalities, and probably we are in a hurry. So there is an analyst, there is an aggressor, and there is an accommodator. These are 3 types of personalities. And this analogy is by Chris Voss, who is an FBI hostage negotiator. So you have to know who is the aggressor, who is the analyst, who is the accommodator, and never antagonize the aggressor. There are some ground rules for that. So know the team on the other side. Another very nice tip is that, observe who is the person who uses a lot of we when they speak, and who is the person who uses a lot of I when they speak. Because the person who uses we more often is generally the decision maker and the leader. And the person who says I more often is basically a junior person. He or she probably has a boss upstairs. So then in Asian negotiation, Chinese, Koreans, etc., there'll be some elderly people sitting in a corner who can't apparently speak English, and they need translators to translate their sentences to you. And you might feel sorry for them and see, why is this old person sitting here? But actually, those are the real people in the team, and they understand English absolutely perfectly. And one of my Chinese friends had told me this. They use those translators to buy time. So before they can give an answer, they want to buy some time during an important meeting. So watch out for those oldies. They are your key people. So okay, so whenever you're in doubt, ask the dumb question. I have seen so many these MBAs. MBAs not all MBA. I'm just generally speaking, but I have seen some of these, MBA types. They come in and speak a lot of managees bullshit, around, and they don't get to the point. Sometimes, when you get to the blunt, bloody question and get it out of the way, it saves time for both parties. When in doubt, just ask the dumb question. That's the simplest way out. Never be the first to drop an anchor, because once you drop an anchor, whichever party drops an anchor gets held up for that price. So that's there. Never shed empathy. I know I'm going very fast with that, but we are almost up on time. That's why. Never shed empathy, because we often screw up. They are long meetings. You get tired. You screw up. You say some wrong things. Never think that saying sorry makes you a lesser person. So saying sorry actually humanizes you. And you lower the defenses of the other party whenever you say sorry, and they think that this person is humble. So I think never shed your empathy. Say sorry if you have screwed up. Harness the power of non-linear trade-offs and free gifts. We often might have some free gifts, which might not be very critical for us. Say, for example, in your case, it could be an extended warranty of 6 months, which will not hurt you that much, but it could be a big deal for the buyer. So have a few of these free gifts in your back pocket and release them at the right opportunity. Sometimes I have seen these free gifts, they can open the most rigid doors in negotiations. And lastly, all these superstar salespeople teach us that take the customer to the cleaners. Uska aakhri paisa bhi nikal ke lao usse. That's a very stupid thing to do, because if you take your customer to the cleaners every time once, probably they will not come back to you next time. Instead of doing that, leave some money on the table. So whenever you are closing a critical deal, customers always have a buyer's remorse. They after signing, they feel that shayad maine galti to nahi kar di. So so that they don't have that buyer's remorse, leave some money on the table, let them feel good about themselves that they had a good deal. So they will come back to you if you do that. So these are some of the desi tarikas, Siddharth, which I have learned along the way, and they help me in no matter what product or service which I am negotiating about.
Thank you so much. जाते जाते आपका 1.5 मिनट और लूंगा मैं बस। मेरे
डेढ़
को ये
मिनट
सवाल बिना पूछे रहा नहीं जा रहा है, और मेरे दिमाग से मैं हमेशा से रहा है, when since the time I have known you, it's been now 4 years. वो ये है कि you are doing a pretty senior, you have a pretty senior day job, you are a family man, you are a daily blogger, फिटनेस में आप एक पूरी तरीके से घुसे हुए हैं, यू हैव रिटन 4 books, एंड अभी आप पॉडकास्टर भी हो गए हैं, 25 पॉडकास्ट कर लिया आपने। दैट्स क्वाइट अ जगलिंग एक्ट। सो मेरा सवाल था डिफरेंट हैट्स, एंड यू आर वेरी प्राउड टू वेयर ऑल दोस डिफरेंट हैट्स, एज यू जस्ट सेड। जरूरी है क्या सब करना? अगर जरूरी है तो क्यों इतना जरूरी है कि हम ये सब डिफरेंट हैट्स पहने, उसको जगल करने की कोशिश करें? एटलीस्ट ना करें, लेकिन एटलीस्ट जगल करने की कोशिश करें। एंड अगर जरूरी है तो if you had to convince the next generation that once they hit 40 or a little or towards that age, they should expand the life in their days without looking at it like a midlife crisis, मतलब अरे मैंने आज बाइक खरीदी तो मेरे को midlife crisis हो गया, ऐसा वो एंगल से ना देख के they should look, how should they look at it? How do you think they should go about it? If you can briefly talk about this, it will be very helpful. ये एकदम पर्सनल सा सवाल है।
बिल्कुल, आई एम हैप्पी टू टेक इट, बिकॉज ये सवाल मैंने पहले भी सुना है, और थैंकफुली मैंने लेकिन अभी तक वो बाइक नहीं खरीदी, वो हार्ली खरीद के और हाथ में वो मरमेड वाला टैटू लगा के मैं जंगलों में नहीं निकल गया अभी तक, वो नहीं हुआ, वहां तक अभी तक नहीं गया हूँ। बट या आई हैव ओवर द इयर्स आई हैव सीन सिमिलर क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम पीपल आस्किंग मी अबाउट माय लाइफ choices. Why do I need to blog daily? Not even bothering to see if someone reads them or not. Why do I need to enlist and compete with experts on domains which are not my own, like for example endurance sports, art, literature, music, cinema, blah blah blah? Kyun karna hai? Some people think that I do it for attention. Others dismiss it as the beginning of a midlife crisis, like you said. The fun part is, I am very self-aware as a human being. I know and understand people's perceptions, and they do not bother me, because mere liye kya na, I have tried and created a life for myself which I wish to live on my own terms, not for some external validation, but for myself. So I will use a Rocky analogy, because you probably know and you've read my book. So I'm a big Rocky fan, old school Rocky movie fan. So in Rocky 5, where George Washington Duke, the guy's name, the unscrupulous promoter, which is played by Richard Grant, he tries to cash in on, there's a flare up between Rocky and Tommy Gunn, his protege. They almost get into fists. So this guy, Richard Grant, steps in and says, in the ring, Tommy Gunn only fights in the ring. So Sly Stallone, he looks at him and says that my ring's outside. So, occasionally it makes sense to step outside your ring and test yourself in a street fight. And then you can, of course, always go back into the ring and you can finish well. You can finish actually much better than what you would have if that was your only ring. Because controlled conditions and known adversaries, they soften us. Because life has a habit of domesticating us as we sleepwalk through the decades, as we grow older, especially after 35, 40. It sometimes makes sense to periodically, sample the thrill of being in a state of feral, as I call it. Feral is basically the state of free from captivity, and captivity of the familiar, and slugging it out in the wild, because it keeps you agile and it keeps you relevant. Because relevance is very tricky. Relevance is tricky. It's also fleeting, and it slips away just when you try to hold on to it. And it is always at the mercy of external people and external validation. So always make your relevance internalized. So if you quote Isadora Duncan's famous quote, I believe in that you were wild once, don't let them tame you. Because if on a certain year, Siddharth, if I do not ace at my day job, I'll fall back on a book. If that year my book doesn't do well, I'll get my kick from winning some poetry contest somewhere. If I'm going through a writer's block, I can always belt myself in the gym into a six-pack and feel great about myself looking at into the bathroom mirror. And then I have a few more alternatives which I've tucked away to, which help me look myself in the eye while brushing my teeth at night. I don't know if you remember that 80s wala movie Under Siege, which was Steven Seagal. And he fights all the baddies, and after wrapping up the adventure, somebody asks him that what is his day job. So he says, well, I also cook. So likewise, I too like to say that I also have a day job, but that's not all of who I am. I have other hats and they all add up to me. I am a Walt Whitman fan. I love large, I love multitudes. मेरा एक दोस्त था, हमने फाइट इन द डॉग वाली बात करी थी ना कि इट मैटर्स इज द व्हाट मैटर्स इज द साइज ऑफ द फाइट इन द डॉग, नॉट द साइज ऑफ द डॉग इन द फाइट. सो मेरे एक दोस्त ने एक बार कहा था, और मैं मानता हूं उसको, कि हमसे लड़ने की हिम्मत तो जुटा लोगे, पर वो जुनून, वो रेंज कहां से लाओगे, वो पागलपन कहां से लाओगे, राइट? क्योंकि मेरे लाइफ का फिलोसफी क्या है ना सिद्धार्थ, एंड वील प्रॉब्ली एंड इट देयर, दैट ये दिल है, इस दिल को ऐसे बच्चे की तरह रखो जो कहता रहे कि या तो मुझे सब कुछ चाहिए या फिर कुछ भी नहीं.
बिल्कुल. Thank you so much. That was signing off in style, boss. Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely conversation and thanks for allowing us to.
Questions आए हैं काफी सारे. I don't know how much justice we can do to them. Let us try. I'll at least read out the comments and I'll try to answer some of them.
Please do.
Okay. So Jisha Patel is saying hi. Varada is saying hello. Varada is again saying, what does success look like you now versus when you first started your career? Very good question, Varada. So when you start your career, your success is all about yourself. Your trophies, what you get in life, your promotions. Yeah. When you get to after 25 years, I think success looks about how many successful people you have created. So when my teams whom I build, they get big jobs, they become vice president, they buy their second homes, they buy flashy cars, I feel successful. So I think it becomes about the people you created, jinko aapne banaya. Then Karan is saying Pythagoras theorem. I didn't understand why, but for some reason he's saying. So Shruti is saying, agree with you, a tough folks to handle most of the time. Any suggestion on how to sail through them tough times? So I think we mentioned this, Shruti, in one of the answers towards the end. Jisha is again saying, what's one myth about success and career you wish that most people should question? So I think first myth is we addressed academic success is not entire success. I have seen many Ivy League people जिनको real life का कोई knowledge नहीं है, and they are big failures in professions. So success should be results, and it should be about goodness, integrity, and how many people you pull along with you in your journey. It's not a selfish thing that you do it only for yourself. I think this is the misconception people think. It is not about your trophies. It's about how many people get trophies because of you. Aniket is saying, hi, Ayon, how do you balance staying true to your values with the need to adapt to change in a fast-paced work environment? So you don't need to adapt to anything. When you have values, the environment adapts to you, because people know. You will never see an honest person being approached with a bribe, because people know not to approach that person with a bribe, because they know that they are in for a thrashing. So maybe I have lost opportunities because of my values, but I don't care. So मेरे लिए मैं अपना values रखूंगा, उन opportunities को अपने जगह ढूंढने दो. So I am like that, and I've known some people, as I grow older, I've become even more rigid about my values. I just don't compromise. जो बनता है कर लो. So it's like that. So, and you do it sometimes, people, you will see that you will develop your own audience and your own tribe when you do that. Abhay is saying, flawed original is better than a good clone is gonna stick with me. Thank you, Abhay. Karan Basu is saying, show them the finger. They seem like they deserve it. Yeah, Karan, they deserve it. और मैंने दिखाया था उनको finger. मैंने यहाँ show पे नहीं दिखाया, because this is going to stay on the internet. But real life में मैंने उसको दिखाया था और mouthful दिया था देसी तरीके से. उसको ना, वो यूरोपियन था बंदा, उसको देसी तरीके से सुनाया था, और ऐसा सुनाया था वो जिंदगी भर याद रखेगा. आज भी उसको मेरी शक्ल याद आती होगी रात को. तो Swati is saying, sir, how do you define success after 25 years in your career? Swati, I think I answered this. Aman is saying, how do you deal with disappointments and bounce back stronger? I think I said this, Aman. Every evening I have a switch off button. When I grab my drink, if I may say, or when I start writing on my blog, my day and my baggage is over. मेरे लिए वो दिन खत्म हो गया, वो दिन, and a new day starts the next morning when I hit the gym. So that's how you have to detach yourself. Sonia is saying, Ayon Banerjee, Siddharth Bose, love this podcast, inspiring conversations. I think I know Sonia. So thank you, Sonia. So ideas for creating a better world. Karan is saying, these racists, okay. चलता है यार, कोई बात नहीं. उनका कुछ नहीं हुआ उसका. And I didn't say the rest of the story, Karan. There was this guy, and I had put out a video about that incident, and I'll share it sometime. So there was this guy who did this, and there was this lady, HR lady, who was sitting there beside him when it was happening. She was looking at her phone, smiling and texting, while I was being fired. So imagine the lack of empathy that a human being can have. And look at the divine justice. This guy got fired after a year down the line, and this woman was out of a job for a couple of years after that. And she actually had the cheek to call me once and asking me कि मैं कोई कहीं उसको रेफर कर सकता हूँ कि नहीं. इमेजिन करो उसकी हिम्मत कितनी होती है. तो होता है, तो कोई देखता है ऊपर से और सब हिसाब किताब हो जाता है. So I think it was a great session. Aniket says, thank you, Aniket. Thank you everyone for joining in. We overshot on time, but I hope you liked the session. And Siddharth, thanks for being such a great host. And thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this. And I would love you to have your own podcast because you seem to have a talent for this. So thank you. Thank you for doing this.
आज मेरे को ही पता चला बस.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone. Thanks Team Thinkly for hosting us. People, viewers, please join this platform of Thinkly which is started by our good friend Vivek Saxena. It's a fantastic platform which hosts curated content from some of the leading thinkers of the world, including Nobel laureates. And it's an ad-free platform where you can go in, watch what you want to watch, read what you want to read, and it is really a value add. I love this platform. So thank you, Vivek. Thanks, Karishma. Thanks, Rahila. Thanks, Aishwarya, Ganesh, Aran, and everybody else who's helped us organize this show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.